when I was a kid, I drank Coca-Cola like many kids do, and I drank a lot of it. And there came a point in time when I felt like it was harming my health. And so at 18 years old, I quit. I just stopped. But what I noticed was that the people around me were blown away by that. They're like, you what? Like at 18, you just decided to stop? And so I decided to take a look at the mental process that I went through to get me to that place. Because if it got me to that place, maybe it could get other people to that place. Yeah. Same thing, 3 years later, I'm 21 years old and I have all these health challenges. And I just undertake a 30-day food experiment. And then that food experiment was so effective that my whole health transformed. And so I just figured out I have to stick with this. So then I had to take a look at, well, how do I stick with it? Because I'll tell you what happens a lot of times when people want to change their behavior. They say they want to lose a bunch of weight. Well, they lose the weight and the pain is gone and the motivation too. And so then they start eating donuts again, right? The binge, feast and famine routine. And so what I wanted to do is say, well, how do I maintain this even when I'm out of pain? And so it means you have to look at a different model of transformation than the typical one. It's easy to get people to change if you just offer them pleasure and hit them with pain, but that'll never last. You have to do something else if you want it to last. And so it really started there. It really started with, how do I get myself to change?
And what you're saying just now, that if it's easy to change people if you give them pleasure. So what that means is what you give is not pleasure or it's not enjoyable only. Let's put it this way.
No, it's that. Yeah, exactly. Look, if you want to motivate a child in the short term, offer them some money or candy or a new video game or something. And then if they don't do it, threaten to ground them and take away their digital privileges. Fine. You'll be able to modify their behavior for an hour or two, maybe a day or two. Yeah. But at the end of the day, they're going to rebel back against that. What you really want to do is try to figure out how to actually change their behavior, not constrain their behavior with the carrot and the stick. But the carrot and the stick can still be really useful. And what I mean by that is that, let's say, for example, that you told me that you smoked. And I would take a look at that and go, well, if you smoke, there's something I know about you. And that is that you're overly focused on the short term. And what I mean by that is that the short-term pleasure of smoking is more important to you than the long-term suffering that it will create. And the short-term of quitting, the short-term pain of quitting, is more painful to you than the long-term pain of coughing your lungs up into the sink. Like you're not associated to the consequence. And so if I want to facilitate change for you, one of the things I'm going to do is I'm going to try to figure out how to move your consciousness on that timeline. I'm going to try to get you to a place where you are able to fully associate to the long-term consequence of that behavior, so that when you're weighing up the pleasure, you start to see a different mathematical equation. I mean, this is a very simplistic view of it, but that's part of the process.
I understand. And you mentioned consciousness. So obviously it requires for people to increase or expand on consciousness.
Yes.
Is there easy hacks, first steps that you found out are easy to take if someone wants to start on that journey?
There's two things that we use a lot in what we call behavioral change dynamics: the structure that we use for designing corporate training programs, retreats, seminars, digital training programs, and even when I write books, there's a structure that we use for that. And there's sort of two components to figuring out, Okay, give me your question again. I want to make sure I answer it exactly right.
So consciousness, if there's easy ways to
how do you hack that consciousness position? There's sort of two ways to make that happen. The one starts with awareness. So your consciousness kind of often sits in the background because it feels unneeded. So for example, when you're eating, you just eat and you don't necessarily think it through. You're just eating and your conscious mind doesn't have to be involved. But then all of a sudden somebody tells you that there's some food dripping out of here, then consciousness kicks in and goes, oh, and you behave differently and you clean it because the captain, the internal consciousness turned on and said, oh, I have to fix something. But we spend a lot of our time in this unconscious mode. And that's a very animal behavior. It's like, I'm just going to browse or I'm going to graze, or I'm just going to I'm picking berries. And and the reason I need to be able to do that is so that I can do that while watching for threats and opportunities. So I need to be able to have that that like ability to have this subconscious behavior so I can keep an eye on what's going on. So the first thing is understanding awareness about that. And then the next thing is building somebody's conscious esteem or conscious strength. And what I mean by that is their executive function. There are many people who on January 1st decide that they will never smoke again, or that they will eat better, or they won't drink anymore, and what have you. And most of those people have abandoned those desires before they go to bed that night. I mean, Happy New Year, champagne, cigarette, food, whatever it is, right? Mm-hmm. So what that says is that there's a difference between what their higher self wants and what the body delivers. There's an incongruence, right? Yeah. So if we can first activate consciousness, we can have them see what's going on, and having them understand their own behavior, that can be really helpful. But then the next part about that is to help them build that executive function, build their self-esteem, and get them to actually follow their own directives. So I have a neat example of this for you. Mm-hmm. Have you ever done an ice bath?
Yeah, I have.
There you go. So an ice bath is great. Now, if you're talking to Wim Hof, and I know Wim, he's a super interesting guy to spend time with. I just think he just didn't grow up, but he's just childlike in every way. He's really fun. And but if you listen to Wim and the biohackers, you listen to Ben Greenfield and Dave Asprey and the various people that are in that longevity biohacking space, they'll give you all these very scientifically reformed and formulated ideas about why you needed it. It causes the circulation to go in and out and all this kind of stuff. Great. But let's talk about it from a different perspective. The first time you do an ice bath, the captain, you, tells the body, the crew, to get in the water. And what does the crew say?
No.
Hell no. We're not doing that. That's insane. Polar swimming. That's insane. We're not doing that.
Yeah.
Then the captain says, do it. Mm-hmm. And the crew's like, oh, come on. Really? Come on, get in there. And then the crew puts one foot in. And the crew puts one foot in. The crew goes, yeah, do you have an idea how cold this is? We're not getting in. And it pulls the foot out. Captain says, back in. Exactly. And then the crew finally capitulates and the crew gets in. And now the crew is in the water up to the neck. We're getting out. No, you're not. We're getting out. No, we're not. Stay in. And then after about a minute, it actually didn't feel that bad because the blood has all gone to the core.
Yeah.
And it doesn't feel that bad. And the crew goes, can we get out now? No. And then 3 minutes hits. And at 3 minutes, the captain says, okay, you can get out now. And the crew says, I don't know.
We don't.
It feels pretty good. Maybe we'll stay a little longer. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And then finally the crew does get out. Mm-hmm. And the crew feels amazing. The crew's like, this is amazing. This is the best thing ever. And in that moment, two magical things have happened. One, the captain's command authority has grown.
Yeah.
Because the crew followed. Yeah. And so the captain's self-esteem has gone up. The captain's command authority has improved. In the meantime, the crew has learned that the captain is smart. The crew has learned that the captain might ask them to do something painful, but that there's a purpose in it. And so the next time the captain says, get in the ice bath, or don't eat that food, or, hey, you got to get to bed and get some sleep. All these things that the captain has asked for before, but suddenly the crew starts to follow.